It began with what sounded like an unusual request, one man's twisted birthday wish. Cain Wilkens wasn't asking for a party, a gift, or even a night out. He wanted another woman. For his wife Claire, this demand was more than humiliating. It was a spark that would ignite something dark and irreversible. By the time police stepped inside their quiet suburban home, the picture of a normal marriage had shattered. But what really happened between Cain and Claire? Was this the result of jealousy, betrayal, or something far more sinister? This case would reveal answers no one saw coming. Don't miss out on the next chilling mystery. Hit subscribe and tap the bell icon so you're the first to know when new stories drop. Cain and Claire Wilkens seemed, at first glance, to be a couple living a quiet, ordinary life. Their modest home sat neatly on a suburban street, where trimmed lawns and mailboxes all looked the same. Cain worked in sales, often traveling for work, while Claire stayed closer to home, volunteering part-time and keeping their lives in order. Neighbors described them as polite, though distant, never the couple to linger at block parties or invite anyone over for dinner. But behind closed doors, their marriage was far from perfect. Cain was restless, often chasing thrills outside the dull routine of family life. Friends whispered that he could be charming one moment, then cold and dismissive the next. Claire, by contrast, carried herself with quiet grace. She wanted stability, a sense of home, but she was also no stranger to heartbreak. Those who knew her said she had endured disappointments before, and that something seemed to weigh heavily on her in the months leading up to that fateful birthday. As their anniversary approached, cracks in their relationship grew harder to hide. Arguments spilled into late nights, with voices raised just loud enough for neighbors to notice. Money troubles, suspicions of infidelity, and Cain's growing list of unusual demands painted a picture of a marriage fraying at the edges. Still, no one, not even those closest to them, could have predicted just how far things would go. On the surface, Cain and Claire looked like a couple weathering normal struggles. But beneath that surface lay a tension ready to explode, and soon their quiet suburban home would become the center of a chilling investigation. It was in the weeks leading up to Cain's birthday that the atmosphere inside the Wilkens home grew darker. Friends later recalled that Claire seemed distracted, her once warm smile replaced with a quiet unease. Cain, however, carried himself with unusual confidence, as if he were plotting something that no one else could see. Neighbors reported late-night visitors, shadows slipping into the house when the neighborhood was asleep, only to vanish before sunrise. When asked, Cain dismissed them as business meetings, but whispers began to spread. Was he cheating, or was something more sinister unfolding behind those drawn curtains? Claire's closest confidant revealed that she had begun keeping a journal, pages filled with her doubts, her heartbreak, and cryptic references to the request. She wrote that she could no longer recognize the man she had married, describing Cain as someone wearing a mask. Yet she never named the source of her deepest fear, leaving investigators to wonder. Had she been planning to leave, or was she already anticipating the violence that lay ahead? The night of Cain's birthday arrived. What should have been a quiet dinner turned into something altogether different. Police later pieced together fragments. Neighbors overheard shouting, a plate shattering against the floor, a car engine revving angrily in the driveway. Then, silence. By morning, Cain was gone. Claire was found sitting alone in the living room, staring blankly at the wall. When questioned, she insisted she didn't know where he had gone, her voice trembling, her story shifting with each retelling. Detectives searched the house and found unsettling details. Cain's wallet and phone were still on the counter. His suitcase sat by the door, half-packed but untouched, and in the garage, a large plastic bin hastily covered with a tarp, carried a dark stain that would send shivers through the investigation. But the most chilling discovery came not from the house itself, but from a set of security cameras across the street. The footage showed Cain returning home that night. He never left again. The mystery deepened. Had Claire finally reached her breaking point? Or had someone else entered that house under the cover of night? The evidence pointed in multiple directions, and with each new clue, the case grew darker, pulling investigators and the public into a web of secrets that seemed impossible to untangle. For days, investigators pressed Claire for answers. Her story remained fragile, stitched together with hesitation and contradictions. Then came the moment that changed everything. The security footage was reviewed, frame by frame. While it showed Cain walking into the house, a second figure appeared only minutes later. A woman, her face partially obscured by a hood. She entered the home quietly and never came out. When detectives confronted Claire, her composure cracked. She admitted she knew the woman. She wasn't a stranger nor a random visitor. She was someone Cain had secretly been seeing. The birthday wish had not been a joke. It was his demand for Claire to allow this other woman into their marriage. In that confession, the unraveling began. Claire revealed she had felt cornered, humiliated, and betrayed. She described how Cain taunted her, how his desire for someone else was flaunted as if she were disposable. On the night of his birthday, the confrontation spiraled. Cain threatened to leave her, even to take everything they had built together. According to Claire, rage eclipsed reason. She admitted that Cain never left the house because she stopped him from ever walking out again. The bin in the garage, once dismissed as storage, was now considered the center of a crime scene. The twist shocked everyone who knew them. What had seemed like a strange, fractured marriage had revealed itself as something darker, a collision of cruelty, desperation, and betrayal that ended in violence. Claire was no longer just the grieving wife. She was the suspect at the center of a chilling murder case. The morning after Claire's confession, the quiet suburban street transformed into a media storm. News vans lined the block, reporters crowded the sidewalks, and flashing police lights painted the Wilkens home in red and blue. Neighbors who once waved politely now stood in clusters, whispering in disbelief. Claire was led out of the house in handcuffs, her head lowered, her face pale under the glare of camera flashes. For some, she was a victim pushed beyond her limits. For others, she was a murderer who had shattered the illusion of a perfect neighborhood. The community's sense of safety fractured instantly. At the courthouse, the scene grew even more chaotic. Protesters clashed outside, some demanding justice for Cain, others sympathizing with Claire's years of quiet suffering. Families cried on the courthouse steps, their grief spilling into microphones as journalists rushed to capture every word. Inside the courtroom, Cain's relatives stared at Claire with cold rage. To them, her confession was nothing short of betrayal. But Claire herself sat quietly, often wiping away tears, her voice trembling as she spoke about the man she once loved and the fear that he had turned into something far more menacing. In that moment, the Wilkens' private tragedy became a public spectacle. Every detail of their marriage was dissected, every rumor magnified, every secret dragged into the light. What had once been confined to a single home now belonged to the world, and the fallout was as brutal as the crime itself. Years have passed since that night, yet the shadow of the Wilkens case still lingers. Claire Wilkens now spends her days inside a gray prison, her life reduced to concrete walls and steel bars. She often keeps to herself, her once bright presence dimmed, her story retold only in hushed whispers among inmates. To some, she remains a symbol of a woman broken by betrayal. To others, she is nothing more than a cold-blooded killer. Cain never lived to see his birthday wish fulfilled. His grave sits in a quiet cemetery on the edge of town, a stone visited occasionally by family, though more often by curious strangers drawn by the infamy of the case. His name, once tied to business meetings and suburban life, is now forever linked with scandal and tragedy. The Wilkens home still stands, though no family has stayed for long. Neighbors say the house feels hollow, a shell that carries the weight of secrets too heavy for ordinary walls. Curtains remain drawn, grass overgrows the lawn, and at night the windows reflect only emptiness. Yet questions endure. Did Claire truly act in a moment of rage, or had the plan been taking shape long before that night? Was the hooded woman simply a pawn in Cain's twisted desires? Or did she play a larger role that has never been uncovered? The courts delivered their verdict, but for many, the truth feels unsettled, unfinished. Time has moved on, but the story of Cain and Claire Wilkens remains frozen, a chilling reminder of how love, once soured, can unravel into something unrecognizable. The dust has settled, yet the echoes remain. Courtrooms have closed, verdicts have been passed, and graves have been filled. But the questions, the ones that keep us awake at night, linger like shadows that refuse to fade. We've seen how one secret can unravel families, how one betrayal can ignite chaos, and how one life lost can ripple through an entire community. Some have tried to move forward, burying their grief beneath the routines of daily life. Others remain trapped in the past, replaying the same night over and over, as though searching for a different outcome. The media has long since moved on to newer headlines. But for those who lived this story, the cameras never stopped rolling. Every glance at a photo, every visit to a gravestone, every sleepless night, it's all a continuation of a tragedy that never truly ends. And so we're left asking, was justice truly served? Or was it simply the closest version of the truth the system could give us? Because in the end, the haunting part of any case like this isn't just the crime itself. It's the realization that it could happen anywhere, to anyone, at any time. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.